Welcome to Cultivate the Ordinary podcast, curious conversations for the anxious, frustrated, and bored. I'm Travis.
And I'm Jessie. So often we're held captive by screens, schedules, and media that's mind-numbing and polarizing. This leaves us seeing dimly through a fog. We want to spark more imagination and a better awareness of God's presence in the everyday.
Join us on a fun journey of discovery and curiosity as we look at the ordinary through the lenses of joy, wonder, beauty, and hope. Welcome to another episode of Cultivate the Ordinary podcast. I'm your host, Travis, joined by my co-host, Jessie. And you could interchange us. You could be the host. I could be the co-host. and I am. Like, we're interchangeable sidekicks. But we have not done a Cultivate the Ordinary podcast recording for months. So we thought it'd be really cool to hop on at the close of the year and just kind of share kind of where a year's been, anything related to this podcast, anything else. And so it's great to be back on with my lovely wife. We definitely are doing other projects and podcasts without one another, so it's cool to hop back on together on this. So
yeah, excited to be here, closing out the year with lots of fun news, and have really enjoyed a lot of creative projects this year, and so that's pulled us away a little bit from this podcast, but yeah, we've really loved this space of having conversations around depth and meaning and God's presence, sometimes soul care.
Yeah, for sure. And so I want to say too, like, personally, it's been cool, even though I think the last episode we dropped was like in the summer, maybe June or July, like it's still continued getting a good bit of downloads, and like, yeah, just maybe new people finding it, or others that have been listening and kind of catching up. So that's so cool. I love that. Yeah. So
it's really interesting to see how things evolve, like with the different podcasts, because now, you do one for work, and, we have these other projects, but how after a period of time, I mean, it's been almost 2 years since we launched Cultivate in January of 24, and
wow.
It's just continued to like roll, and there are definitely new people finding it, and it feels good.
Well, and to that point too, I just want to say, to kind of close the chapter in this segment about just kind of cultivate the ordinary looking back, is I also look at, like, it was so pivotal to kind of the other podcasts we're doing, and even like our work podcast, my work podcast with America's Kids Belong, which I encourage you to check out if you're at all interested in the foster care space, or even curious. It's called the Foster Friendly Podcast. Top 20 it's in the top 25% of podcasts, which is really cool. It's grown big, and but really in some ways I don't know that would be around. We all had ideas at America's Kids Belong about launching a podcast, but I guess because I personally had done that one not that long, recently, and realized, like, here's kind of the platforms we're using, or like this wouldn't be too hard to do production wise. So anyway, that was kind of a genesis for even helping that one go. So, let's talk a little bit about the year, just in rewind, looking back. Personally, we've had a lot of great moments and low points, and as anyone else that lives life. So, but I thought it'd be fun to start it off with just do you have a top, like, kind of funny memory or a funny thing that happened to you this last year?
I know you asked me that. I don't have a great memory for like all the funny things that happen. Like, you're better at that than me. But just last week I came home and something very memorable happened to me last week. So I can go back that far. Is that fine?
That's awesome. And it's recent.
I was at QT and just by myself, and I was getting
Gas
coffee or
station, if you're
something
not
like
familiar.
that. Yeah, we have QTs in this part of the country. And I was walking by the whole coffee bar. They have like a whole section of just all these different coffees, and you know, they have coffee taps and all kinds of things. And one of the attendants was adjusting something underneath the like cabinetry, and there's like hoses and all kinds of things. I was just passing through. I was just walking through, and randomly I got completely sprayed, like hose sprayed with water, like chest, full body spray. And he was like, he realized that he sprayed it, and I think he thought it would just went on the floor, and then he looked at me and his eyes were like, oh crap, I'm gonna get fired. And I just kind of smiled, and I was like, is it just water? And he was like, yep. And I was like, okay, I'll be fine. And I just kept walking.
So you chose not to go full Karen on him.
No. I was very pleased with myself that I was very gracious, and it wasn't a big deal, because it was just water. But it was really funny because the look on his face, you could tell he was really, like, his coworker was right there too. And his coworker looked at him like, did you just do that?
That's hilarious. I remember when you telling me that, I was just like,
but I got home awesome. 20 minutes later, and I still had like water all over me.
Still wet.
I was full sprayed.
Soaked. Mm-hmm. Soaked at a Quick Trip gas station. What a random story.
And this was inside. It was just by the coffee.
Well, and I think the funny thing too, maybe you had said this earlier when it happened, but like Quick Trip is like the Chick-fil-A of gas stations. Like they're known for the best service, the best like manners, all that kind of stuff. So like that happened there, where it's like, oh my gosh, that's unconscionable. This happened.
Yeah.
So funny.
Yeah.
My funny memory goes back to a funny incident, I guess, or a event, more towards the beginning of the year. But we were at a men's group that I'm part of. We go out once a month and hang out and do stuff. And we happened to be at a brewery and it was karaoke there. And there were several of us there, and like, I hate karaoke, but I mean, it's fun to watch, and, kind of, if you're in the right, maybe mood but there was kind of this, some of the guys were going to do it. And then I think there became this like, well, we all have to do it then. And so I could feel the pressure. I could also feel the pressure in my chest tightening. And so I thought, I'm going to have to do this. I'm getting this. This is going to be the, peer pressure deal. And, but I thought it would actually be really funny if, the twist we put on it was, and maybe there was like, I don't know, 8 of us, something like that. If, we have to pick each other's song, but you also aren't going to know it until like literally you're going up to the mic. So we had this idea to, okay, come up with a song, put a number on it, and then we'll put it in a hat and we'll draw. And hilarious. I mean, just one guy showed up late and he was number 1 to go and had kind of almost no idea. I was like, dude, you're about to go up to the mic. Here's your song. It was, I think, Don't Stop Believing by Journey. And he just, killed it. That's a tough song. Yeah. Mine was the worst imaginable. From our pastor. It was what is the official name? Barbie? Is it Barbie?
Barbie girl.
Barbie girl.
Yeah.
And it was like my hand, like mean. It's like that was mean, and it's like already karaoke sucks for some people, and that's the song, and I was like, oh my gosh, I would have been way better off just going up and trying to do like an 80s or a song I want to do. Anyway, and then the last part for mine was really awkward. Obviously, a very awkward song. And at one point in it, I'm kind of like struggling, and I'm like, does someone want to come up and help me? I just make that announcement. And this young woman comes up and she jumped right. Oh yeah, I'll come. And so her and I, and she's kind of dancing, facing me as we're singing, and it's like, this is not the song that
Yeah.
you want that. So it was.
That's what you get for asking for help.
Yep. So anyway, that was a funny memory looking back. So yeah, as we kind of keep this theme of looking back, what so Jess and I are both huge quote people, love quotes, and but if you were to think of a quote that sort of, I guess, summarizes maybe your year or kind of a place you've been, or just in any way, like, do you have a quote that really stands out? Sort of been something
I came
thematic or.
across this quote recently, and I honestly don't even know the person who said it. I just love the quote. It says, "Trust the wait, embrace the uncertainty, enjoy the beauty of becoming." And it really kind of fits with where I'm at just in my just spiritual journey, my relationship with God, my healing of my own wounds and things.
Mm,
Um, there's a lot of freedom in not needing to have all the answers and to
hmm.
just trusting the process and knowing that, like, I'm being formed, I'm being shaped into who God wants me to be. And that
Hmm.
becoming is kind of, I like that word because we're all becoming something. And now it
Right.
could be something good. It could be, we could be going in a really wrong direction.
Hmm.
But at least for me, who I'm becoming is, I'm constantly seeking, what the beauty in that process of being formed.
Yeah. Yeah. That's very cool, man.
What about you?
That's one to just sit with for a while. Okay, so mine. That's tough, man. I've got thousands of quotes. I have binders of quotes. But one of them, I guess, that stood out to me, and it kind of seems maybe a little tongue in cheek, but it's kind of very to the point. Um, and this is by Daniel Berrigan, who I I think he was a Catholic priest, but anyway, his is this, and he's talking about faith. So it definitely applies to me in faith, but also kind of where I've been at this year. But it says faith is rarely where your head is at, nor is it where your heart is at. Faith is where your ass is at. And it is funny, but also it's sort of like, here's why it's so true for me is that, and I look at both faith, but also just like um kind of rhythms as well, or like, I guess it really does speak to like, what do I believe about God or his presence right now in my life? What am I, because I think when you're like, we've had seasons where we've been really like trusting and courageous, and whether it was stepping into foster care, moving across the country, just really leaning into like trusting God, like that was not just a head thing, not just a heart. It moved us. It's
Mhm.
where where
Yeah.
your ass is at. I mean, and I think for this last year, I look at, there's a lot of things I think in my head, like, okay, this is what I, for instance, just even soul care stuff, like where I'm really trusting that a slow space, a space of like stillness and quiet, and that is where I should regularly operate, because it's such a place to commune with God and his presence and silence and all these things. I'm rarely ever there. And so, but it's not a head, because I'm very aware of it, a heart thing of wanting that, but I don't find myself there.
Mhm.
So I really resonate with that quote of just like, if you're not like, if you're not there
Right.
in that place.
Yeah. Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of, there's an Anne Lamott quote that says, "Don't look at your feet to see if you're doing it right, just dance." And I
Mm,
know that, they're different things. Like, you're talking about faith, but just
mm-hmm.
yeah, it just kind of reminded me of this, like, yeah, just being really aware and present.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So It's a quote that stays with you. So, it's easy to think back to, like, where am I occupying? Like, what does that mean about what I actually do believe, or
Mm-hmm.
where is my heart? So, because that moves us. So,
Yeah, and oftentimes we're spend so much time asking the wrong questions,
mm-hmm.
like, am I enough? Am I doing it right? Am I worthy of love? You know,
Yep.
but like even just that first quote of that who am I becoming? And
Mm-hmm.
um or maybe where is your ass at?
Mm-hmm.
Just these are more right questions of like,
Yep.
where are you?
Right.
Who are you becoming?
Right.
Versus the other types of questions that often people ask, which really are just insecurity, I guess.
Yep. Yep. No, well said. Well, anything else as you kind of, again, looking at this 2025, a lesson or two that you sort of learned that stood out, that's sort of been a takeaway for the year, or
Um, well, I don't know if I mentioned this in the summer podcast, but just that I'm in the Soul Care Institute, which is a cohort of, people who meet in North Carolina for week-long retreats every 4 months. Um, and each time I go, there's like a something that God is really showing me that I need to practice. So,
mm-hmm.
something for most of this year that I've really learned to do, which it started at the beginning of the year, which was my word for the year was like play or
Mm-hmm.
lightheartedness. And so I think practicing really trying to just have more fun, not take things too serious, just engage in things that make me feel like I'm having fun, like being more
Mm-hmm.
childlike, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So that's a really big one. And I think more recently, there was a guest pastor that came to our church at Emmanuel, and he was a pastor of the church in Charleston where there was a kind of racially motivated shooting.
Mm-hmm.
And he wrote a book about forgiveness. So
Hmm.
just, I feel like somewhere in that message, God really spoke to places in me that carry resentment and just kind of
Mm-hmm.
said, if this man can forgive the man that shot his wife and several people in his church congregation, and he can turn to that man in forgiveness, then the small little places in my life where people have hurt me, I can let go of those
Hmm.
things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was actually killed. I mean, multiple people were actually
Mm-hmm.
killed. So,
Right.
wow. Yeah.
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 Very powerful.
Well, I guess for me, I'm gonna just kind of say my lesson is what I already kind of said. I feel like just about, like, where am I occupying, and what does that really mean about what I believe ultimately is good for me, or in light of what I'm, uh, 'cause at the end of the day, it's like, um, where are the spaces I'm mostly occupying, and is it mostly distraction? Is it mostly like just uh, whatever, and if it's places that it's not where I want to be, there's a disconnect there. And I'm really, that's kind of what I'm sifting through,
Yeah. That's good.
because I have not done well this year on a lot of the things that I've wanted to sort of do that are good for me. I mean, so,
Mm-hmm.
um, so let's move this forward, kind of currently, as we close out the year in December here. We're recording this a week away from Christmas. Um, where are you currently finding beauty or intention? Um, in the everyday parts of life. Another way to say is, where are you cultivating the ordinary currently?
Yeah, I think most recently, you've gotten to watch just me start to pick up art again. We went on a recent trip to Highlands, North Carolina, Cashiers area. And for whatever reason, during that trip and around that time, art had really
Mm.
started to kind of stir back up in me ideas for ways to do portraits, use that gift that I have in different ways to bless people, to maybe make some extra money,
Mm-hmm.
that sort of thing. So I'm noticing I have these like light lines on my face. Do you see them?
Oh,
um,
is it from the sun coming
yeah,
through?
it's the window.
I was like,
But
what
it's
is
fun.
going
I
on?
can kind of play a game here. It's like a video game. Okay, but I'll sit back so it's not distracting. Um, but yeah, so just starting to draw again and do portraits and um, some landscapes and things like that. It's really just opened something up in me again. And I think with that too, this year has been a, a place of finding beauty in stillness and
Okay.
nature. So,
Hmm.
trying to just sit and observe the things around me and find beauty that's there.
And you, I just know this, like, even though these are practices you're working on, and so, like, you are very pretty good at it. Like, as when you lean into those places.
Thanks.
I'm just saying.
I need it.
Just saying.
I didn't used to be good at it.
Um, yeah. I would say for me, um, I would say it's the spaces of relationships has kind of been a thing that I've been thinking about a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
power of that. It's easy for me to, so as an Enneagram 8, if you know anything about that, like, it's easy for me to be wounded around, well, to also often think I can go it alone. And the wound for me is that people let me down all the time, or that I can't count on people. And so there can be a little bit of Lone Ranger there, even though I love people and relationships. But so I can go through some seasons where it's like I want to pull back, or just be like, no, that's not right. I need to lean in. And I really think this last year was a leaning in. Um, the years before, we were working so much at our land in East Tennessee, our retreat property, and amazing. It was so fun, and and it was work, but there was so much I think that was pulling us. Also, like, sometimes it was almost every weekend. And so this last year has been a really, like, we're in Spartanburg, South Carolina, and it's really anchored us with our kids' schedule, being in high school football and volleyball and stuff, of just needing to be here.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think also, like, I've really leaned heavily into relationships, especially at our church. And I think I've been reminded that it's when, and this is hard for me, but I know it's also really true. It's when I can be really vulnerable, and I'm with people who are vulnerable, and we can kind of just open up our lives, open up what's behind the curtain, and show weakness, show where we need help.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing, the gift of community and God working and using each other to do that. I don't have the quote in front of me, but there's an Anglican pastor that has this great line of, like, something around, like, we need each other to live, to be alive.
Mm-hmm.
That in a way we create each other. And
Mm-hmm.
what he means by that is that, um, I think in God working through us to encourage one another, to inspire, to light a light, we're helping one another just kind of live and be alive. So
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a lot of that this year. Uh, or
Yeah.
that's what I guess, the space I'm I guess leaning into.
Yeah, I think was it about a year ago? I feel like it was cold. So either right before Christmas or right after, you and I went on a date night and just had a good somewhat hard conversation about just that necessity for you
Hmm.
to open up your life to other men and really spend. I mean, you used to do that a lot, and you just kind of went through a season where, I
Yep.
think caregiving for your dad and then working out at the land, a couple of years of really limited
Hmm.
community with other men, and
Right.
that was a big void for you. So this year
Yep.
has been really cool to see you lean back into those relationships
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's a good reminder of me needing to keep doing that.
Hmm.
Um, what's sort of been something that's made you curious lately? Topic, hobby, something you're really been into lately? You talked about art earlier and stuff, but
Yeah. Um, More recently, I think just being in the Anglican tradition and making some more friendships with different people who have more of those like ancient traditional practice type things. I've been introduced to iconography and the art of making, um, symbols and images that depict theological truths, and being kind of captured by the beauty and simplicity of some of these paintings usually that have very specific colors that represent certain things, and there would
hmm.
be a scripture behind each image, and what the different little elements might mean, and it's just fascinating. Like, it's something I want to
Hmm.
learn more about, and some of my own drawings and artwork and prayer cards. Like, I will, when I go on these soul care retreats, oftentimes certain things will inspire me to make a prayer card to depict images and remember a um, certain scriptures or certain things that
Hmm.
have been impressed upon me, and so I think the combination of those things, like the prayer cards and the iconography, is kind of a little bit of a hobby, something I'm curious about. What about you?
That's cool. Well, I was just gonna also respond to that of just like I love it because in this Anglican space, um, which if you're not familiar with Anglicanism, not to do a deep dive, but there is a beautiful thing that we've kind of learned of. There is a bridge of sort of a bit theologically, but also just in terms of church history of sort of going um, the early church um, that then became, the Reformation sort of reformed some things about, say, the Catholic Church that Anglicanism sort of sees as like not all of that should have been thrown out, like
Mm.
that the early church fathers were doing. That was, we saw it in the disciples, all that kind of stuff. And so there were some things that then, once you get further into the embracing some of that stuff, what I think you're doing is, no, this is not a replacement for like you're sort of worshiping this thing.
Right,
It's
right,
that thing becomes a pointer
right,
to worship
exactly.
Jesus even more. It becomes a
Yeah,
um
expression.
yeah, an expression,
Hmm.
it's a visual aid. I mean, I think what
Hmm.
we've realized in Anglicanism that's so beautiful for us, and partly what attracted us over there, was kind of realizing that all through the years of like uh it felt so much like even on the church Sunday, like it's worship and singing, and that's great, and we need that. And then it's the sermon, we need that as well.
Hmm.
But it felt so just intellectual, like just sort of like here's head knowledge a lot of times.
Hmm.
And I think where the Anglican expression brings in is just we worship all through our senses.
Hmm.
And so there's this appeal to like, how does visually looking at something, maybe an image of Christ, maybe something, what does that do to our heart that puts us in a different
Right.
space,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That just, so this isn't, no one's saying this is a replacement for reading scripture. This is not that,
No, not at
but
all.
it's a different way of putting us into a different space to
Yeah.
commune with God or to spark our imagination.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just wanted to add that of like,
No, that's good, and I'm glad you did. I think there is, yeah, just for me being an emotional kind of creative type person, it's like, I do get a lot out of, reading certain scriptures, but then my imagination starts to take off, and it's like, there's there's something really special about being able to worship through images and,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's not necessarily so left brain logical, but more creative, emotional, and, things like art and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and I'm just more interested in kind of the history of like how these
Mm-hmm.
different scriptures turned into art and
Yep.
and what that really looks like, the process, because I think it's not just like, oh, artists depicting scripture. Like there's a lot
Right.
of elements that have to be present for it to be part of that
Mm-hmm.
tradition. So it's
Sure.
cool.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Yeah. What
I,
about you?
I, um, I've been kind of thinking about that of like, there's a lot of things I feel like I'm just always curious about. I'm curious about, um, I guess things that spark my imagination, things that draw me closer to God. I've really been into poetry this last year of like the power. I love words, but the power of images through words. There's so much beauty in poetry. Um, so I've been digging that a lot more than I ever have, and kind of reading things that you just sit with and go like, wow, that line is just, hmm, that's a really, so that would be something, and
Yeah.
yeah, that's something different. I guess I'm more curious about,
Yeah. Well, I
um,
would say it was this year that you picked up the ukulele, right?
yeah,
Yeah, there's that
but
too.
it's been sitting for a while, and that's a reminder of like I really want to pick that up again. And that actually goes into what I was going to ask you next, and if you have anything else to add to that, but two of like what you want to spend more time in the new year on or thinking about. And for me, it is that I'd love to keep working on the ukulele, and that's anything else you kind of think that you continue to want to work on in the new year or spend time
Um, it's hard to say what I want to work on, but an
or think
idea,
on or
yeah, something that I'm thinking about more is just the word Emmanuel and God with us, that the idea of God being with us in all things. I think it sounds very kind of cliche.
mm-hmm.
But in practice of like knowing when I'm disappointed, when I'm, you know, anxious, when I'm
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that I'm going through, like remembering the withness of God, that it's not
Yeah.
like this experience I'm having that separates me from God and he just hopes that I'll get through it so I can get back to him, but
Right.
more like in that experience that
Yeah.
he is with me,
Yep.
and that he's walking with me through it,
Mm-hmm.
and that I'm not alone,
Yep.
so just the word witness
Yeah.
is something I want to think
Love
more
it.
about.
It's awesome. Love it. All right. Well, let's kind of talk. Let's get in this final home stretch on this episode. Talking a little about goals for this podcast going forward that's sort of laid dormant and gathered mold. um, but no, I think saying that, what I want to say too is we've talked about how we've always want this podcast and really creative things that we want to do. There's that balancing act of like when you're trying to be true to like soul care and rhythms and stuff like that, that if you're pumping something out that starts to take away from what's life-giving or like become a production, like, which I mean, it's easy to make anything like that, like, and that's, I think it's when you have something fun or something that you really enjoy and you kind of want to grow it or whatever, it's easy to sort of like, you can overdo it or it can just become this thing. So that's kind of one of the things why we pulled back some too, is just like, hey, let's really have this be authentic to like something God's really sparking in us, or like it feels like, hey, let's do an episode on this, or let's, go down this, instead of just like pumping out stuff. Like,
Mm-hmm.
so with that being said, like, I think we talked about, not necessarily have any goals for sure of like, well, we're going to have, such and such amount of episodes each, whatever. But that, yeah, you speak to this. Like, what comes to your mind of like kind of
For the
going
new
forward,
year?
and yeah, in this podcast specifically, or
Well, I continue to learn
different
about.
co-host. You want to swap co-host and get me out of there?
You're doing a good job leading this, so I think I'm good
Can
with you
hang on
you
for another
hanging in there
episode.
for a little while. I think with my retreats and what I'm doing, the Soul Care Institute, just that theme of belovedness is something I continue to learn that people don't know that they need to understand. So continuing to just reinforce like being loved and how, as again, it sounds so simple, but there's a lot of burnout, there's a lot of weariness, there's a lot of uh, ways in which people are showing up to their life, and they just don't know it. Like, they know it maybe in their head, but they don't really embody it or feel God's love for them. And
Yep.
like Matthew 28, or I'm sorry, Matthew 11:28-30, the Message version says, "Are you tired, worn out, burnt out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace." And I think just knowing part of that scripture is like, we have to learn rhythms of slowing down, and we have to watch the pace that Jesus had. And I think knowing how loved we are allows us to rest from constantly striving and achieving and
Right.
working. And I think it all kind of
Yeah.
fits together, but that's what I would focus on.
Sure. Yeah. Love it. Well, and then we had a date one night, and try to do that regularly. And sometimes, we've probably shared this in the podcast, that we do have, I think it is a gift that we're blessed that we both shine this way together, but like that we can get creative energy around ideas and projects, and that can be a way we grow and bond together. Like, we can, some people, and some things we struggle with for sure, of like it's can be hard at times to do that, but I do think it's been a gift, and when we are in a good place, it's great. And so we did have this idea, one, it was kind of like a light bulb went off, of like, what if we focus some episodes on um cultivating things, or looking at places and spaces that we tend to see as negative or avoid, and that we can realize they can actually be profound places to learn and grow, in ways that we never would if we didn't lean more into that. I think you have a lot of great thoughts around that to expound more. So what do you?
Yeah, I
I
think just in our conversation that night, it was just this idea of um, boredom, grief, anger, fear, pain. These are things that it's like, wah, wah, wah. Like, why would we want to talk about that? Because everybody sees it as negative.
Yeah.
They're not life-giving, fun, inspiring topics. But I think if you peel back the experience of some of these things, like for instance, boredom, you know, the best creativity comes from when you put down your phone and you don't have distractions, and you are just sitting alone with your thoughts for a while. And if you allow, I think there's a light and a dark to all of these things. Like, that you can go into a deep dark hole and it can be super negative, or you can see opportunities in each of these things. And like with boredom, oftentimes creativity is following a time of, just not really having much to do. You see it in kids, like when they don't have screens, they'll go build a fort or, whatever.
Yeah, that's all. That's a great example that it'll be fun to unpack more, because in that specific topic you're talking about, where it's like the typical thing for me would just be like, if I'm in a place of boredom, or a lot of us, it's like, okay, next thing to scroll, tune, veg out on, whatever. And okay, that may get me out of what feels like boredom, but it certainly has not led to creativity.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that cool, like you said, it follows.
Yeah.
But it may not even come if we don't kind of get to that, or let ourselves be in that space.
Yeah, I read this book maybe a year ago. I think it was called Energy Rising, but it was about emotions being the energy. And the concept applies here, because she was talking about when you avoid certain things, and in this case, it was certain negative emotions, which is some of these things that we're talking about. Not that boredom is an emotion, but when you try to avoid negative experiences, let's say, you sort of atrophy your ability to see those opportunities that they present to you, and you miss out on getting stronger, and being able to kind of harness those things for good.
Yep.
And so trying to avoid suffering, trying to avoid getting angry about things or whatever, and we're actually missing out on something else when we avoid.
It's good. I like that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of atrophy and then growth. It's pretty rad. Any other thoughts on any of this stuff, or kind of anything else you want to say around?
Yeah, I think just casting vision for that, maybe a series or something on each of those topics, would be where Jesus meets us in each of them. So that's another, it's not just personal opportunity for growth, but it's God's presence. Yeah.
Cool. I love it. Well, let's kind of land this plane, and I think, excited for the new year. I think a lot of us kind of get in that place. Well, this is where I'm going to try to, do some healthy patterns. I think it's common to, maybe we can get really down on ourselves, but also some of us can get really like optimistic of like, okay, once the new year hits, it's going to be, so I got a little of that, but I'm looking forward to it for some new rhythms and things to keep growing in. Because as I've been honest about in this podcast, this has not been a good year for me in terms of like a lot of the stuff I'm trying to do with cultivating good habits and routines and rhythms. And you'll be the first to say it and remind me of it often, but because I'm being honest. I mean, I do struggle with routine. I like freedom. I can tend to want to just veg out, tune out, be distracted, chase experiences, and it's not good. Like to do too much of that, or to that be such a default. So yeah, I'm in process, and I'm a wreck at a lot of this stuff. So, but
well, we all are. I think we're all looking to grow in different areas, and the fact that you recognize and you see the goodness and being able to try to slow down and pay attention and create some structure is good. So
yeah, I'll keep working on it. Just going to say to anyone listening or watching that, encouraging you as you join us or listening to this episode to think about maybe in the new year, what are you going to be working on cultivating? What is there that around you? And so when we say cultivating, it's like, what is in the ordinary space? It can be your family, it could be your routines, it could just be, maybe it's a really helpful hobby that's like giving life and causing you to slow down, but be thinking about like, what are you going to be looking to cultivate in this new year and grow through that? And yeah,
that's awesome.
We need each other there. So, okay. Well, thanks for hanging out with us today, and fun to revisit this podcast, and excited to, for the new year. Thanks for listening to the podcast today. I hope you found something helpful, hopeful, or thought-provoking. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to any resources mentioned in the podcast. We also have links in the notes for our own resources to check out. We would really love to hear from you, and we're also really grateful for your support by sharing the podcast episodes with your friends and family and leaving a rating and review. May we all regain and maintain our wonder, hope, and inspiration as we look at our ordinary through new and fresh eyes.